All right, welcome back to the Optimistic Fan Club, the only sports talk podcast show on YouTube who is not pumping you ads from gambling companies and other terrible people. So if you want to support us, hit the links in the bio. You can buy a shirt from pumpkinhead.shop, our little side company that we got going on over there. All designs created by yours truly. And you can join the Patreon. That's enough plugs. Let's get into it. I hope everyone's doing well. We got a big list of things to talk about today because things are brewing in the ether. RG3's comments about the Browns' dysfunctional quarterback situation. We're going to be going in on that guy and that insanely bad take. Going to be talking about the rise of BS coaches and why that's a complete infection in the NFL world. And also, we'll be talking about the new Shedeur Sanders fans, that problem that's going to potentially be created in the Browns universe, and the George Pickens trade, some other general NFL things. But without further ado, let's get into it. So RG3, as you know, if you're on Twitter, I mean, the guy's pretty active. And I need to preface all of this by saying I was a massive RG3 fan when he was coming out of Baylor. Like, everyone who was a football fan liked RG3. He revolutionized, honestly, a lot of like that RPO game that we've seen flood a lot of the NFL world and like college football in general. Not that he was the first to do it at Baylor or anything like that, but he was such a dynamic dual threat quarterback that it really sparked a lot of innovation in the game. He was a fantastic player. It really sucks that his injuries made his career turn out the way that it did. But regardless, he was an icon. Like, I had the RG3 Adidas socks that said no pressure, no diamonds. He had a bunch of stuff like that, like the whole all in for week one campaign. RG3 was a big time name, and he had a great rookie season too. Like, he was fantastic. But as his career went on, the injuries mount up, and then he made that shift into the sports media world. There was just one thing that always stood out to me, and it's that he seemed very disingenuous, that he was very clickbaity with his takes, with his points of view, and that he was always trying to do something to like edge himself ahead of whoever he was sitting on a panel with. Like, there was a time he said the J word, and people on the panel were like, whoa, dude, like, what are you doing saying that? But he's just saying it to say something, to grab a headline. And it's now no different now. So not that I've lost respect for the guy. It's not like I know him personally, but I just find him incredibly annoying. And that now this Browns take, and we're going to listen to it, you're going to hear it's just like another position that you can so easily poke holes in what he's saying that it honestly doesn't even make sense by the end of poking holes in it. So let's jump into it. Him and his wife, I guess, on this podcast, she asked him a question. We're going to listen to it here.
What do you think of the Cleveland Browns QB situation?
Oh, it's horrible. It's absolutely terrible situation for a quarterback to be in. Let's get real, people here. All right? This is the thing that nobody wants to talk about. Shedeur Sanders is in a situation where the NFL and the Cleveland Browns have set him up to sink or swim in year one.
Okay, so right off the bat, the NFL and the Cleveland Browns have set him up to either sink or swim in year one. What does that even mean, first of all? And second of all, does this mean that you, RG3, are one of those people who believe that the NFL and all of the owners and all of the teams colluded to keep Shedeur Sanders either out of the NFL or just in a different round? Like, that's the whole thing with this idea of collusion. If it was collusion, like, you could make the argument that the Colin Kaepernick situation is collusion. You could make more of an argument. It's like, it's pretty clear as day. They don't want somebody with very divisive political stances to be the backup quarterback on the team. That is so far and away removed from Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is just a very confident, a lot of people label it cocky, young player who has an extremely famous dad. Like, that is what all of this is. And what came out in the pre-draft stuff, there's definitely something that is true about all of that. And that if he wasn't going to be the QB1 for a team, a lot of teams didn't want him to be the QB2, but the Browns couldn't pass on him. It's like, this has all been overcomplicated as to why he fell so far. And RG3 is opening up all of this, basically being, saying it without saying it, or he's just not understanding what he's saying that the NFL and the Browns colluded. So what is the whole idea of this collusion? That we're going to drop him down to round 5, and then that's when teams can pick where he's going to go. He was still drafted, so there's no collusion. If there's collusion, he wouldn't be in the NFL, and that would be what is being talked about. But we're going to get to that a little bit more. Now, let's go to where he's talking about 5th round picks and the reality of their careers.
Topic. Shedeur Sanders is a 5th round pick. Guys that are drafted in the 5th round typically don't make NFL rosters. And if they do make NFL rosters, it was because they showed their absolute talent in the preseason and all through training camp and the offseason. But here's the difference. Most of those guys weren't quarterbacks. Most of those guys weren't fighting to be the 3rd or 4th quarterback on the roster. Shedeur Sanders is at a position at quarterback where only one guy gets to play. If you're a 5th round receiver, you got a chance to make the team. You just got to go out there and show out. And a lot of times you're going to get opportunities with the 1s and the 2s because of injuries, hamstrings, ankles, those type of soft tissue injuries that pop up. But at quarterback, that typically doesn't happen.
Okay, so this is incredibly ironic for RG3 to say, because the same draft that he was taken number 2 overall, the Redskins took Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. Why? There's multiple reports and reasons as to why. Apparently, Mike Shanahan didn't really like him, or some people on the staff didn't really like him, and it was more so like an ownership move to be like, we need to take this really high-profile, marketable dude who's obviously a really great player, just won the Heisman at Baylor. But they took Kirk Cousins because there was something that they didn't like, maybe. And, in retrospect, maybe you look back and it's like part of RG3's attitude. There was, some whispers here and there that he rubbed people the wrong way, or there was something about his aura that held him back in terms of being able to connect with the rest of his team. But to go out and be like, really the only way he's going to get an opportunity in a crowded quarterback room is if there's injuries. It's like, dude, you literally lost your starting job to Kirk Cousins because you were constantly injured, and he started producing and doing a better job. It's like this whole overcomplication, excuse me, this whole overcomplication of how is he going to see the field? How is he going to see the field? What? The cream rises to the top. If it is clear that he is doing better, which they will see every single day in practice, because this is how it's going to work. Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. I completely agree with that. Kenny Pickett, I think, could easily be cut. If not, they are going to rotate those team 2 reps between those 3 guys, and they will all have opportunities throughout the week, throughout preseason. Like, each of those guys will wind up starting a preseason game. Joe Flacco will come out. He'll get like a series or 2 in 1 or 2 of the games, just as a tune-up to get there. But Dylan Gabriel's going to get to start a game, and so is Shedeur. And at minimum, they're going to get the second halves of those games. And yes, sure, they're not really playing against the top guys, but let's have RG3 kind of, let's hear his logic on this here.
Coach Shanahan and Coach Gruden would call the guys in the 3s and the 4s cab drivers. Now, I'm not saying I agreed with the way that they characterized these guys, but they would call them cab drivers because everybody in the building knew that most of those guys would not be playing in the NFL past the end of that preseason.
Okay, so that's also really weird, like saying that most of the 4th rounders aren't going to play in the NFL past the preseason. Like, I understand that to some degree, but there are year in and year out guys in the mid to late rounds and undrafted who wind up becoming not just players who make a roster, but great players and starters and stars. It happens all of the time. And haven't we all agreed that Shedeur Sanders is better than where he was picked in the 5th round? It's like, where's the logic in any of this argument that's going on right now? And also, too, I know he's not calling them cab drivers, but it's like, bro, you were beaten out for your spot by a cab driver. And that cab driver, Kirk Cousins, has had an exponentially better career than you did because he had the patience, he had the willingness to sit around and be a backup and work and grind until his opportunity came, which is exactly what every great quarterback has to do. People forget Tom Brady did not play as a rookie, as pick 199 from the 6th round. They carried an extra quarterback that season because they believed in him. And then he got the opportunity. It's like, what are we talking about? He doesn't have to sink or swim in year one. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's keep listening to this.
So not only is Shedeur Sanders going in as the 4th quarterback, having to try to beat out 2 veterans and a rookie that was drafted before him, not only is Shedeur Sanders going to be going out there and have the fewest amount of reps of all the guys when he has to prove and earn his way onto the roster, Shedeur Sanders is going to be out there with cab drivers. He's going to be getting protected by guys who are not going to be playing in the NFL, throwing to guys who are probably not going to be playing in the NFL, and handing the football off to running backs that are probably not going to be playing in the NFL.
Okay, well, thank you, Robert Griffin. However, Shedeur Sanders just came from a program where he was throwing and being protected by guys who aren't in the NFL and handing the ball off to guys who aren't in the NFL. Yes, a lot of his receivers went, but to not have a run game, to not have any tight ends, to not have an offensive line and still be able to do what he did, it's like he is going to be fine. This whole idea, and this is the annoying thing, and him saying what he's saying here. It's like it wasn't handed to him. It's like it doesn't need to be handed to him. He has the constitution and the ability to go forward and thrive in this scenario. And people are crying about it in this way, being like, they're setting him up to fail. They're blackballing him. They're colluding to try and bring a young, confident man down. When has that, like, it's just absurd. And I want to finish off. I know there's a lot of like listening right now, but I just wanted to run through this. Here, listen to this final part.
Regardless of the name on the back of his jersey. But the reality of the situation is they are setting him up to fail. A lot of people think that this confident young man needs to be humbled. There is no better way for someone to try to humble somebody by having them not make an NFL roster and make it as hard as possible for them to make that NFL roster. I don't think that's right. The solution for Shedeur Sanders, because we don't just like to talk about what's happening, we like to give solutions. The solutions for him is he's going to have to work 4 times harder than everybody else in the building.
Okay. Thank you, Robert Griffin. That's enough from you. Lock him up. So there you go. That's basically his position. He's like that the NFL and the Browns colluded to make it as hard as possible for him to make a team, which is like, it's not as hard as possible. He would have gone undrafted. That would have been the hardest thing. He's a 5th round pick. 5th round picks make NFL teams constantly. So throw that whole theory out. But it's like the NFL and him colluded. So was the plan for the NFL to make sure that he went to a team that already had an overloaded quarterback room? Was that part of the plan? Because that's like, oh my God, how will he ever overcome that mess? Kenny Pickett? How will he ever overcome that? It's like what you're explaining, where it's like, you know, they wanted to see him humbled. They wanted to see this and that. If you're talking about the context of like people who had the top overall pick and who were very interested in drafting this guy, they probably do wish he was a little bit more humble. He would have carried himself better in those meetings, and he probably would have wound up being drafted in the 1st or 2nd round. They didn't think that he had the ability, beyond being a starter, to be able to sit behind and be a supportive backup, whatever is asked of him. When in reality, it's like, it is clear the way he's handled himself, the way he handled himself through the draft and how he's handled himself post-draft, he's going to be able to do that. It's the fans, it's the media, everyone else who's going to be clamoring for this guy to be the starter right away. Shedeur's mindset is not there. Is he going to do everything in his power to become the starter? Absolutely. But it's like, that is what football is. That's what sports is. Like, anyone who's trying to become the top dog in whatever avenue it is, obviously has to outwork the other people, obviously has to have a great mindset. It's like all these obvious things that RG3's listing. It's like they wanted him humbled, and the NFL and the Browns wanted him humbled. So that's why they drafted him in the 5th round. And now it's going to be so hard for him to even make the team. But I believe that he can, because I think he was a 1st round talent. It's like, if he is good enough to be the starter, he will be the starter. If he's not, he will sit. The Browns are not cutting Shedeur Sanders, though. You can have this studio and the password to my YouTube channel if he is cut, okay? I will publicly publish that. He's going to make this team. They will carry all the quarterbacks they need to if they have to, but they are going to play the best player available. And they also know that they have 2 first-round picks next year, so they will evaluate their quarterback room more than any team in the NFL because they have viable guys. It's like Joe Flacco will be gone after next year. Kenny Pickett will be gone after next year if he's not cut in training camp to keep Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur on the active roster. Like, their future isn't Joe Flacco and it's not Kenny Pickett. It's either Shedeur Sanders or it's Dillon Gabriel. So they're going to give those guys all the opportunities in the world to play, and they will play more than probably a lot of rookies will, or at least one of them. So this whole like incoherent rambling basically that he's having just to grab a headline of like, the Browns are dysfunctional and this is so dysfunctional. This was a fantastic thing. What is the one thing the Browns haven't had ever since Otto Graham or the man right up there, Bernie Kosar? A quarterback. So what do they need? A quarterback. What does that require? Drafting quarterbacks. Quarterback competition, getting the best out of whoever is in the room and allowing the cream to rise to the top. It's like, that is what the situation is. Everyone is overthinking it. And I don't even think that they actually believe this or feel this way. I think that he just wants to yap on Twitter and have some sort of headline to go off of because it's really not that complex. Yes, Joe Flacco is going to be the starter, but it's still going to be an open competition to a degree. And we've seen this before when Matt Flynn was signed from Green Bay after he started a couple games for Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers was injured, becomes a Seahawk, and then was slated to be the quarterback one. Was given a big contract for a guy who's basically coming as a backup quarterback. But then they draft Russell Wilson in round 4, round 5, round 3, whatever it was. And it was clear through the preseason that he was number 1. Matt Flynn still got all the number 1 reps. But it was clear and obvious that he was doing things at a higher level and gave him a better chance to win than Matt Flynn did. The better play is going to shine over everything. And they'll all have their opportunity to take first team reps in the preseason. It's like Joe Flacco's 40 years old too. He doesn't need to be taking every rep. They probably need to have him on a pitch count, if anything. So it's just an absurd, terrible take. And there's going to be so much of this stuff where people are like, they're colluding, da-da-da. And you're already seeing this in the comments of the Browns. Maybe this is a good chance to transition now into like the new Browns fans that you're seeing. Every single time Shedeur gets posted, there's people being like, oh my God, the Browns and the NFL colluded and now they're using him for clicks. It's like, guys, it's a video of him leaving his car and showing up to the facility the same way they do for every draft pick. It's not that deep, okay? It is not that deep. There's completely logical reasons for why Shedeur fell in the draft, but it turns out in the benefit of the Browns that it's a draft steal because he's much better than where he was taken. So it is like you're seeing all these crazy like people in the comments being like, I'm a Colorado auntie, I'm here for my boy Shedeur. It's like this new wave of fans that you're seeing in there. This is going to be the biggest problem for the Browns going forward in 2025. It's not Shedeur. It's not Shedeur's ego. It's not Dion. It's not anything. It's all of the new fans who are like lifestyle fans of Shedeur, who are going to be flooding the comments, the phones on like post-game shows, anything like that. If Shedeur isn't getting playing time and this team isn't doing well, they are going to be the problem. They're going to be trying to push out a guy who might not be fully baked yet, ready to come out and play. So that is concerning. The amount of new fans, and I welcome you. Welcome to the Optimistic Fan Club. We talk about a lot of NFL stuff, but we're primarily Browns here. This is the best show for you, I promise. Just try and keep it civil in the comments. Not mine. You can go off. Just the Browns ones. Don't accuse them of unfounded conspiracy theories, because this whole the NFL and the Browns colluded and it's a humiliation ritual and all this stuff. It's like, guys, believe me, I like a good conspiracy theory. Absolutely. Like the rest of us. They're fun. Get you out there, scare yourself at night and you're thinking about it, watching a YouTube video, going down a rabbit hole. If Shedeur Sanders was Cam Ward or carried himself the way that Cam Ward did, the Giants probably would have taken him, or the Saints. And that's not like he's just confident. It's like, no, it's like the extra stuff. It's like having the on time, like not the celebration, but like making a song. Like all these little clips that we've seen post draft where Shedeur's like, oh, you want to make a song? And Cam Ward's like, no, man, I'm just about football. I'm not a music artist. It's like those are the things that you can point to. And then the whole being unprepared for the Giants meeting thing that aided in him slipping. And whether it's right or wrong, whether those things should be considered or shouldn't, they were. And they were made by people in power with a lot of money who want to get the maximum return on their investment and don't want the problems. It's like, if anything, Shedeur, it's like if you look at the reels on the Browns page right now, Shedeur's video of him just walking out of his car has almost 1 million views. The one with Mason Graham, the Browns' first pick in this draft, number 5 overall, is 88,000. It's like, that's just the way it is. He is a media sensation. Any team would have been happy to have a guy like this. And I just think that this idea that it was collusion, that it was this and that, there's so many logical reasons as to why. Ultimately, I think those were bad reasons. I would have picked Shedeur much earlier. Like I would have picked him in the 3rd round. I would have maybe picked him in the 2nd round with the Browns. I mean, I definitely would have if I was running the Browns draft. I'm happy with the way that it all worked out because you get Carson Schweschinger, you get Quinshad Judkins, you get all these great pieces in addition. So it's only the benefit of the Browns. But to think that it was this masterminded conspiracy, I think is unbelievably stupid, and there's no way you could ever prove it. So don't try and prove it. And people like RG3 making these arguments and being like, he set up to fail and it's classic Browns dysfunction and blah, 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 blah. It's like, hey, RG3, maybe other people are better at handling the adversity of having a quarterback competition than you are. Have you ever considered that? It's like Kirk Cousins was definitely that way. And look at where his career went and look at where yours went. And just to be like, because you were a great player in college, to think that you have so much in common with Shedeur Sanders, it's like you play the same position. That's about it right there. People carry themselves a different way. I think this is the problem. And this is the ultimate problem. This is the final thing we'll say on Shedeur. Everyone's trying to put themselves in his shoes when you have no understanding of who he is, what his life has been like, and what his journey's been like. People think he's entitled, that he's been handed everything. His daddy is his coach and makes everything work for him. Then on the other side, people think he's been slighted, he's been discounted because of who his dad is, that he's been unfairly treated, and that the NFL is colluded against him. Him as a person, he's a quarterback who just wanted an opportunity. He has it. And now he has a perfect set of ammunition to create one of the great NFL stories of all time. And that's all he wants. And that's all he needs. And he's going to go out and he's going to do his job. So everyone stop trying to fight this war for this guy. Stop making stupid clickbait headlines that are so easily disproven, that don't even make sense when you watch them in full context. And let's stop being psychos in the comments on the Browns post. Okay? So welcome to the new fans. Happy to have you. Let's just all take a relax. And RG3, see you later, buddy. Next, I want to talk about something else because, you know, I've been seeing, I get a lot of Dolphins content on my Twitter feed for some reason. I don't know. My mom's from Florida. Maybe that's got something to do with it. They get the algorithm in the pipeline. But I was just thinking about like this wave of new coaches, new GMs, all these like wonderkin, really young, like quasi attractive, clean cut dudes who are basically all like amoebas of Sean McVay. Like you got the Jags new GM now, James Gladstone, whatever his name is, who seems honestly like a little bit of a weirdo to me. He goes out, he's like really talking in the mic a lot, like trying to boost his presence within the media over there. Is like, you got that going on, made that big trade, which I think was the Browns' absolute benefit, their dismay. You have him. You had like Brandon Staley a couple years ago. Then you had Cliff Kingsbury a few years ago. And then Mike McDaniel. And I think Mike McDaniel is like the really big one. And he's kind of the last man standing in this spurt of hiring young offensive-minded mastermind guys who are like, don't necessarily look like football players or football coaches, but they are. And I'm just so sick of this stuff because I like to call them bullshit coaches because that's really what they are. And I'm not trying to say in any way that I know more, but like, look, guys, like if you've been watching the show for a while, it's like I played football. I played from grade 3 all the way through university. Like I've been playing football, watching football for a long time, but that lets me know that I know so much less than any of these guys, like ever. These people are incredibly intelligent. They understand the X's and O's. They understand all of these things. There's a reason why they have these jobs. So I'm not with that. Again, I have to preface it by saying that like this isn't me coming at them from a football point of view, because in the case of Mike McDaniel, when he goes out, when the offense is rolling, he looks like a mastermind. People love the motion, all those clickbaity headlines where it's like, he's changing the game. He's revolutionizing the game. All for that. Just a couple years later, after all that praise that they got for Mike McDaniel to really be on the hot seat this year. Like the Dolphins are not in a good position whatsoever. And it's tied to multiple things. It's like getting stuck in a trend or a fad, not being rooted in the fundamentals, and taking a half measure at quarterback. And, you know, let's start with the whole idea of a half measure. The Dolphins were in the sweepstakes for quite some time to try and land Deshaun Watson. That created some tensions. The whole Brian Flores Tua issue that came out and like really came to a head last year. You know, they knew that Tua was a pretty good quarterback, but didn't necessarily have like the special arm talent or the athleticism. His health has been a continued issue over and over and over and over and over. And it ultimately amounts to, I'm going to pull up the contract, a 4-year, $212 million contract that will bring them all the way through 2028. And this is the whole idea of the half measure, where it's like, you don't necessarily have a guy who can put the team on his back and get you over the hump, which means unless everything is perfect around you, you have the right amount of youth and health and scheme and coaching, you have everything right around you. Like, for example, the way that the Philadelphia Eagles do, you don't have a quarterback who can take you over the hump. So everything around you is going to have to be perfect. If that doesn't wind up delivering over a couple years, you're going to lose guys due to contract disputes. You're going to lose guys because of age, retirement, injury, all these things on and on and on. It's like Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's the kind of quarterback who can get you over the hump, who can erase all of these major glaring issues the way that like a Joe Burrow does, like, or Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes. And even with Pat Mahomes, it's like you have an amazing run game, really great defense. It's like with Joe Burrow, what he did in 2021 or 22, he's the ultimate eraser. And yes, his receiving talent is amazing. They had a really bad offensive line and their defense was not that good. He was an eraser, like the same way Tom Brady has been, like all the great quarterbacks. I think Joe Burrow is in that atmosphere, that stratosphere of like the great guys where it's like you could put them on any team and he's going to make you pretty damn competitive. Even what he did this year, it's like I think he should have won MVP without a doubt. And this comes from a Browns fan again. So Tua is not that. If you're not that kind of quarterback, I don't think you're worthy of being re-signed, because, and this is what I'm trying to get at here. This is what the Browns' predicament was when they gave up on Baker. And there was multiple reasons why. Like, Baker was really immature. He's come out, he's admitted it himself. He couldn't really handle the Cleveland media, who was, you know, calling him a midget, all these things. Like, it was a bad environment. It was a bad time. It was really the way that it lined up with his make or break contract season. He's injured, playing through it the whole time. Like, it was just bad all around. But the Browns knew, it was like, we don't necessarily know if you take us over the edge. And I would say even now with playing in Tampa, like, and all the power to Baker, like I love him as a player. He seems like a great guy too. I don't know if they're ever going to get over the hump or be better than what they were last year or the year before that. Like, are they ever going to be a team that goes to an NFC championship and Baker's the guy who wills you and gets you over the edge? And even in that scenario, it's like they have fantastic receivers. Kate Otten is a great tight end, like relative to his acclaim in the NFL world. Bucky Irving, Tristan Wirfs, an amazing left tackle, great center, solid defense around you. You have all this going on. I really don't know if he'll ever get you over the edge. If you put Joe Burrow on the Bucs, it's like they probably go to the Super Bowl last year. If you put Josh Allen on the Buccaneers, it's like, who knows what kind of team that is. If you don't have one of these guys who's like going to completely push you over the edge, or if your team isn't all right around you, where it's like every area is covered and the boxes are checked, I don't know if you're worth re-signing. Like, you might be better off letting a guy go, sucking, and taking another crack at another quarterback at some time. Because of what value is it just being like what the Cowboys have been with Dak, where it's like you're in the playoffs every year, you're in the dance, but you never really have enough because of the contract you had to give this guy to keep him around, to load up with talent around him, to be a better team. Like, that is the ultimate name of the game. So to me, it's like the half measure of keeping Tua was to keep consistency, to keep butts in the seats, to keep you a competitive team. But it just didn't make sense because he's not an eraser. The team around him is starting to age. And now you have the questions of guys like Mike McDaniels. Like, does he really have the pulse of his team? Does he really command respect? And I think that that's where I want to shift it now. Like the rise of the bullshit coach. Brandon Staley, complete bullshit coach. And excuse my language, but there's really no other way to describe it. You're looking at guys who are little twig boys, who look like little boys, who are all about a soundbite, who like to call out the the press, not paparazzi, by name and be like, oh, Mike, that's a great question, Mike. Let me tell you, Mike, it's like they are all about working the room and developing these relationships early on so they don't face as bad of criticism when they inevitably start doing bad. It's like this weird power game that they try to pull. With Mike McDaniel, it's more like, I'm just going to say the funniest thing that comes to mind. It's like, I'm not even really an NFL coach, but I am. Isn't that weird? It's like that whole aura that's going on with those guys. Brandon Staley, Mike McDaniel, Cliff Kingsbury, Hugh Jackson from back in the day. And he wasn't like a young, attractive dude. There's a difference there. But the general theme with these guys is that they have a weird hunger for authority. It's like, go back to Hugh Jackson, him and Todd Haley on Hard Knocks being like, I'm the skipper now. I'm the head coach. So I know you've been a head coach, but now this is my team. So we're going to do it the way I want to do it. With Brandon Staley, when people were starting to question him, being like, why do you think people believe in you when you just got like 70 points scored on you after that Thursday nighter? He's like, I know I have the pulse of this locker room and this team, and like no one's quitting and no one's giving up. It's like, it's plain as day. They have quit and they've given up. With, Cliff Kingsbury, he could not rein in his starting quarterback who was constantly causing issues and basically calling him out, throwing him under the bus. Like, Kyler Murray is that dude. And he's another guy who I think is a complete half measure signing, a guy who has commitment issues, who doesn't have the size, who you gave a big contract to, whose teammates have called him out before, and you re-sign him and keep him around. It's like, and what I'm saying, this, it's not like they're not really, really good players and great players. It's that they don't take you over the hump when it matters most, late in the year or in the playoffs. That's what I'm talking about, like the clutch dudes. And he wasn't that. And Cliff Kingsbury, this is the other running theme. Overly technical coaching that is not rooted in the fundamentals. Cliff Kingsbury, Brandon Staley, and Mike McDaniel, it's all about deception. It's all about disguise. It's about having a huge, long play sheet and being able to outthink and outmaneuver the other guy. But what happens in a season when you walk into a buzzsaw and it's like, okay, it's negative 30 degrees out, like exactly what happened to the Dolphins against the Chiefs in the playoffs, if it was last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was. It's like, it's freezing cold. We're going to line up our guys and we're going to run the ball at you. And if you can't stop us, we're literally going to do this all game. And you can use all the speed and all the deception and all the different formations and all of the things that you want and that you think are going to beat us. But at the end, this game comes down to a very simple set of skills. Can you block? Can you tackle? Can you catch? And can you not turn the ball over? It's like, can you do those things consistently every play when everyone knows exactly what's coming? When it's 4th and 1 and you need 1 yard, we all know you're just trying to plow ahead between these two guards behind the center. That is the only option here. Are you going to be able to stop us? And that's what the best teams have been able to do over and over and over. That is why the Eagles are as good as they are. There's nothing crazy. There's nothing fancy. Everyone wants to ban the tush push. When it comes down to getting 1 yard, who is better than those guys? And that is ultimately what seasons come down to when you boil it down. And all of these coaches, these young guys who want to be overly analytical, who want to use speed in every way, who want to use motion constantly to create these elaborate sets and mismatches and this and that. It's like, at the end of the day, do you command respect when you walk into a locker room? I've played for a lot of coaches. Like I mentioned, like I played however many years of football that I did. And even when you were a little kid, you have coaches who you respect and who you can tell at a young age where you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just like some kid's dad who's stepping in to hold a bag. And now he's giving me tips. It's like, I don't know. And again, I had a dad who knew football, who understood and played. So that kind of gave me a bit of a litmus test. I'm like, you know, when you're dealing with people who don't know what they're talking about. And again, not to say these guys don't know what they're talking about, but do they command respect? And there's no way, if you are a 350-pound one tech, if Brandon Staley walks in, he's like, come on, defense, we got to get a stop here. It's like, who is this Keebler elf who's making $10 million a year to be my coach? Get him out of here. It's like over and over and over. And then Mike McDaniel. It's like, now you have all the issues with Tyreek Hill. You have like the whole Jalen Ramsey debacle that has happened. Vic Fangio left the Dolphins because they didn't take it seriously enough because everyone's out partying in Miami. That's why he went to Philly. And it's like, that's on your head coach. It's like, maybe it's just so hard to coach in Miami in these big cities because of that. But it's like, look at Sean McVay in LA. And this is what everyone's been trying to emulate. They see a young dude with a funky haircut and who's very marketable. And NFL owners will go, we need to do what they're doing. Get Sean McVay in. You know what the main difference is? Watch any one of these sound clips, like NFL mic'd up. Sean McVay lives and breathes and loves football, and everyone can feel that. And he has an intensity to him that commands respect and buy-in. Brandon Staley doesn't have that. Mike McDaniel doesn't have that. They seem like guys who are happy for the opportunity and want to goof around and get a sound bite. They're not Sean McVay. And it's like the same thing with Matt LaFleur. It's like you could make the same argument with Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur's a fantastic coach. Got the best out of Aaron Rodgers over the back part of his career. Has turned Jordan Love into a pretty solid player who just needs to be more consistent. He's also a young guy. But it's like, that's a good coach. That is a really, really good coach right there. And I'm sure Green Bay didn't do it just because they're like, we also need a young guy. See what the Rams did with McVay? We also need a young guy. Because the Packers have historically made great decisions when it comes to personnel and coaching. So that was just, I know that's very ranty, but it just really bothers me when you see people on Twitter on all these things throughout the season being like, you know, specifically with the Browns, being like, the Browns don't use enough motion. Kevin Stefanski doesn't use enough motion. Explain what you mean by that. If you're talking about creating a mismatch with your best player and getting guys who need a little bit more speed to start on the run, sure. But if you're thinking that it's motion that creates great plays and scores touchdowns and wins games and wins Super Bowls, like, I'm sorry, you are completely mistaken. And you're just like repeating a buzzword thing. You know, it's like, the rise of all of these people online who can just repeat a couple things that they've heard in a football circle and think that that's what you need to do. It's like someone being like, we need to run the West Coast offense when you have no understanding of what the West Coast offense is. It's just like a word that you've heard because it's tied to famous people who have won Super Bowls. So that's really disappointing. And this is the final thing actually I'm going to say on that. It's like with Ben Johnson going to Chicago. There is no guarantee that Ben Johnson is going to be a great head coach. I think that he has something to him. Absolutely. Like I think he commands a little bit more respect than like a typical offensive coordinator getting a new job would get. Like I think he has a clear vision of what it is that he wants to accomplish. And they've built a really good roster there. So I think that they have a pretty good chance to succeed, but there's no guarantee because this is the thing. Ben Johnson had the luxury of only having to be an offensive coordinator in Detroit. And he could use anything. He could get the green light from Dan Campbell and he could go for it on fourth down. He could throw the ball to Penei Sewell. Like they had a madman at head coach who did the legwork of working the fundamentals, of understanding that toughness is the most key thing as the playoffs go on. It's like all those videos of Dan Campbell being like, look, guys, like I don't want to have you on pads, but I promise you, like, this is only so we can get better. Like you have to trust me. Like Dan Campbell got so much buy-in and good faith from his players and from a young group of players that culture is now going to carry on, even with losing a great offensive coordinator like Ben Johnson. But with Ben Johnson now going to Chicago, it's like Detroit didn't have that success because of Ben Johnson. He was an ingredient in that meal. He was a side dish in that meal. The meat and potatoes of it, though, was Dan Campbell. The emphasis on the fundamentals, the emphasis on toughness, the emphasis on brotherhood, on the team building things, on the things that actually matter and that last and that allow leaders like Amon-Ra St. Brown to rise and command the respect that they do, to give Jared Goff a voice and to have people believe in him, to like, you know, there's just so much more that goes into football and coaching than just play calls and motions and speed and this and that. When it comes down to it, when it's who needs to get 1 yard, who is the best team to be able to do that? If you put everyone in the same formation running the same 5 plays, who's the team who would come out at the top in that set of circumstances? And I bet you more often than not, it's the Super Bowl champions. Those people who go the furthest and do the best are the best at the basic things and would be the best if all of the variables are the same. So I don't think there's any guarantee that Ben Johnson's going to go out there and be lighting it up first-time head coach. I think that he is a big road ahead of him. And if he thinks he can come in and just inject some pizzazz and trick plays and all this stuff, you know, that's not going to get the job done. They're going to have to be able to do all of the little things right. And even in this new wave of NFL offenses, like Detroit was viewed that way, but what are they when you ultimately boil it down? A run-first offense who's extremely tough and gets yards after contact and blocks really well. That's what it is. That's what it takes. And that's what I'm hoping the Browns turn back to this year, just injecting that in there. So I think the final thing that we're going to talk about here is the George Pickens trade. So the Steelers obviously bring in DK Metcalf. And a lot of people are looking at like, damn, like DK Metcalf and George Pickens. This could create either one of the most lethal offenses and passing attacks we've seen in quite some time, or a powder keg that's going to blow, because both of those guys are highly emotional players. Like George Pickens way more so than DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf seems like he channels it. Yes, he does like some stupid selfish penalties sometimes, but it seems like he is a pro football player. George Pickens is still extremely childish. I think maybe the most talented receiver in the NFL when it comes down to it in terms of like ball skills, body control, all that. But it's like he quits on routes. He doesn't block if he feels like he's being slighted and isn't getting enough attention in the offense. He's extremely childish in those ways. And that is just so draining as a head coach and as a team when you have someone like that. Like it's like cancerous. But now to go to Dallas, like I think that honestly, I think it's two things. Like I think the Steelers should have held on to Pickens for a little bit longer. Like if I'm them, I want to see what we have with George Pickens and DK Metcalf, because those are both guys who you could argue it's like if they're at their best, you need to double team them. You're going to create so many more opportunities. It's going to help your run game because you have big, long guys who are aggressive. And if you can build that buy-in and that culture, it's like it's going to make your run game lethal now with Caleb Johnson coming out of the backfield, who they just drafted out of Iowa. You have all this opportunity, but to move off of him then, it's like I think if they would have waited till partway through the season, pre-trade deadline, they could have commanded so much more for him, or it could have been a match made in heaven. It's like, remember when T.O. and Chad Owens or Ocho Cinco? Whoa, that just wigged me out. Chad Owens was a CFL receiver, the Flying Hawaiian. If you know, you know. Chad Johnson and T.O., they played together. They were Batman and Robin. They had a really, really good season that 1 year that they had together. And that's like two ultra big personalities. Like, I think that this thing could have worked. And ultimately, they make the decision that they do. And I think that it's Dallas's gain. It's like now you have, like, say what you will about Dak. The guy can distribute the ball. I think that that's going to be a really solid passing attack and offense. It's what Dallas has needed for quite some time, like a true number 2 weapon. It's just now, can you get him the ball enough early on in games to keep him satisfied and, you know, take a little bit of the focus off of CeeDee Lamb. So I thought, like, I get trading him, but I think it was a bad trade because you could have waited and got a whole lot more and it could have worked out in your benefit. But then again, I'm not in the room. I don't know what it's actually like with him. That is just my opinion. So I think basically that is all that we've got for today. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's play that song now that we all love. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to the Patreon. The link is below. Buy a t-shirt designed by yours truly from pumpkinhead.shop and get ready for a whole lot more of these. On Tuesdays, we put out a exclusive Patreon episode, so you can get more there, behind the scenes stuff, and make sure you subscribe because we got a ton of stuff coming. We will see you in the next one. Later.